So the next question that's been asked is, would I talk a little bit more about transfer and generalization? Okay? Imagine for you sitting here while I talk, I can see some people are taking notes and you're attentive to the information I'm sharing. Imagine that as soon as you left the room today, you had no idea how to use the information I've just shared with you. Imagine if you thought this information was specific only to our getting together this morning in this room, and it had no bearing on what you might choose to do once you leave this room. That is really the touchstone of deficits in transfer and generalization. As I mentioned earlier, if you don't see your life as a contiguous whole that has fluidity and changes over time, it's very difficult to understand how learning can be useful other than where you're learning it. One of the things that I didn't mention earlier is I have seen that very often individuals along the autistic spectrum have a different internal time consciousness. While we know that all children primarily focus on the present and the here and now, most children just simply through maturation begin to understand that the past impacts upon the present, that the two are irretrievably linked to one another, and that what you're doing in the present has a direct impact on the future. So one of the things that makes transfer and generalization problematic for individuals with autism is very often, even as they mature, no matter how smart they often remain here and now people. So you can see that curtails the relevance of wanting to use what you learn in one setting to another. And if everywhere you're going is brand new and you can't see the direct linkage between what I'm trying to share with you today and how you might begin to speak with your children or use this information and how you support and deal with a grandchild with autism, you could see how difficult it is to acquire broader and broader learning that has practical implications. So the way that we generally go about this for children with autism is we teach them a skill in one setting, but as soon as mastery has been established, we begin to teach them how to use that skill somewhere else. So for example, imagine you have a child with autism who really loves to go to Carl's Jr.'s, and you finally developed a framework so that they can seamlessly go and have a meal at Carl's Jr.'s, get food that they enjoy, have appropriate behavior, participate in conversation, or participate in sitting through the meal effectively with others. What do you do next? Looking at this issue of transfer and generalization, the next thing you do is you take them to a different Carl's Jr.'s. Because kids with autism will get very familiar with one Carl's Jr.'s, but that doesn't mean that they can go comfortably to another Carl's Jr.'s 3 miles down the road and not feel like you've taken them to another planet. So, another thing that you do, you don't just take a child, once you train a child to go to Carl's Jr.'s for lunch, and I'm not trying to be a commercial for Carl's Jr.'s, it's just an example, but once you teach them to go to one fast food restaurant, then if you've taught them to go there during lunch, then take them for dinner. So you can see that through exposure, through different situations that are initially relatively similar in nature, you artificially begin to promote the creation of letting children see the similarity of settings across time, even if they aren't able to do that spontaneously internally for themselves. And ultimately, as you create broader and broader exposure, so assume after you've taken them to Carl's Jr.'s and they can go to every Carl's Jr.'s in the community, day or night, then you take them to a McDonald's. And you let them see that that has direct similarity, and the skills that they used effectively to get their needs met and participate in a meal at Carl's Jr.'s, they can demonstrate those same skills, and it will generally work at McDonald's. Okay? Now, one of the ways that we prepare kids for transfer and generalization is something what we call priming. Because people with autism have difficulty predicting and dealing with change and drawing social inferences and knowing what's going to be expected from them in new situations and what they might expect from others, what we do is we prime or we preview things for them. So imagine you have a child who, that you have taught how to eat well at home, but you haven't been able to take them out to a restaurant for the first time. How do you transfer and generalize those skills that has allowed them to eat effectively at home when you suddenly want to take them to a new environment? First thing that I would do is that, for instance, using this example of fast food again, if you have a child who likes to eat hamburgers and French fries, which isn't necessarily the best diet, but seemed to be a very popular diet for children in the United States and North America, what you would do is initially you would teach a child to eat at home the type of food that you will want them to eat in a restaurant. Once again, I'm building a bridge between foods and environments so it can be carried elsewhere. The next thing you would do is that you would give them a variety of different hamburgers and different kinds of rolls and buns so that they get comfortable and will eat hamburgers in different ways. I have one child I see now who will eat a hamburger bun but not a hot dog bun that's made by the same company and contains the same ingredients, but it looks different, right? So once again, you're stretching people's notion about what they're comfortable with. The next step would be to go to Carl's Jr. and bring home some hamburgers and French fries. The child would be sitting at the same table they were accustomed to. You would do the same order. You'd give them the same, plates and silverware to eat their meal. And so ultimately, to create less problems in transfer and generalization, you make small steps, so gradually an individual with autism takes large steps but isn't overwhelmed by that prospect because you've done it in an incremental and sequential manner. Okay? So that's some ways to think about transfer and generalization issues. But as I said, as soon as an individual acquires a skill in one place, you need to begin to move it to other rooms, to other places in the community with different individuals. So if you have a child who gets comfortable with getting a bath only from his mother, before long you have to have other people giving a child a bath, because otherwise the child's notion of a bath is solely associated with the mother, and that when anyone else tries to give that child a bath, all hell breaks loose and they have a meltdown. Okay? So those are some basic notions regarding transfer and generalization.